Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes, here to preview Tuesday night's SEC basketball action. Will start in our hometown of Nashville, where Vanderbilt will host South Carolina. I'll be in the gym for that one. No spreads out on this one yet, I don't think, but looking at the computers, I kind of take an average of Ken Pomeroy, Bart Torvik, BPI, and Sagarin. Vanderbilt about an 11.5 point in favorite of this one. Vandy played a little bit better in a tune-up game against Southeastern Louisiana. Carolina is just a struggling program. They are 7-6, haven't beaten much of anybody so far, other than, let's see, they got a win at Georgetown, and I'm missing one other one. Beat Clemson earlier. But Carolina struggles to score. I think Vandy's got more offensive output in that one. I don't know if Vandy can cover 11 because I just don't trust that team for much right now. But I do think the Commodores win their SEC opener.
Well, it's hard to trust the two teams at the bottom of our power rankings when they play each other. But, I mean, the difference to me is South Carolina is, oh, boy, what are they, 1-4, 1-5 away from home.
And a 249 in adjusted offensive efficiency.
Well, yeah, I was going to get to that. I mean,
and
but I think
356th in foul shooting.
Yeah, well, I don't. They need more than just to make up deficits by a single point anyway. So, the point I was going to make about the schedule is like they're 1-5 in away or neutral court games, and their only win was at Georgetown, and that was an overtime win against a bad team that I don't remember. I think Jeff Goodman put out the number. I don't remember what it's at now, 29 or something against. Georgetown's lost their last 29 games against high major competition or something like that. So, so when you put all that together, yeah, I mean, it's kind of not ideal. And I think that's kind of more the big picture thing here is they just have not played great away from home. And some of those against better teams maybe than they'll see against Vanderbilt, but some not. I think Vanderbilt probably can get off to a good start in SEC play here with a win because, this is still a team that can get there. I don't mean get there in terms of like putting together a team that's going to make the tournament, but I mean, in games like this, like I think they still are good enough to do some things that, that can cause some teams problems. Now, the next 4 games after this, when they play Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, maybe not. But in this kind of game, I think they can get there in terms of putting together, a performance that I mean, because the thing with Vanderbilt you have to remember too is this team have a lot of upside right now? No. But they've played a lot of close games. They've won some of those close games. They've lost some of those close games. So it's not necessary. It's not a team that's really just gotten blown out by anybody. And
yeah.
I'm not saying that's going to happen against South Carolina. My point is, I still think they're probably closer to that area where they're not,
probably closer to Ole Miss than they are to Carolina.
Yeah, there you go. They're closer to the 10 to 12 range in the SEC than they are the number 14, I think. And I think that's why I would pick them to win this one.
Well, when Vandy shows up, and look, Vanderbilt's the only team to beat Pitt since Pitt lost to VCU on November the 17th. Pitt's now 3-0 in the ACC, and I know we're cherry picking because Vanderbilt's also lost to Grambling, and darn near lost to Alabama State in those games. But Vanderbilt looked a little more interested and productive in the last time out. Take that for what it's worth. Has got some guys that have played some ball and played well in the league. I just think the ceiling is certainly higher and the floor is too. I don't know that I trust Vandy to cover 11 in that game, but the more I look at South Carolina, I'd just stay away.
As always, we're not professional bettors, so I mean, these are the two teams in the bottom of our power ranking, so I don't think I'd have a lot of confidence either way in this, but I think Vandy's been proven to be the better team to this point.
Before we get to our next one, and we're doing 4, a quick shout to our sponsor, Stakes. Predict sports better than the crowd. For a chance to win NFTs with Stakes, players can submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com/14, user invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Okay, we are doing these in order of tip-off. Next up, we've got Mississippi State visiting Tennessee in your rock fight game of Tuesday night, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, it's a defensive game. I'd probably be surprised if either team scores over 60 points, in all honesty. I think it's that kind of game, just based on how these two teams play. And yeah, I mean, it's, thing is Mississippi State, we keep saying, I just don't think, yes, Tennessee has their issues offensively, but I just think Mississippi State has more issues offensively. And
yes, definitely.
The defenses kind of cancel each other out because they're both pretty elite. I mean, they are elite in that regard. I mean, they're probably two of the top 10, 15 defenses in the country in terms of the numbers they put up to this point. So, to me, that's the differentiator, is the fact that I just think Tennessee is, a better offensive team, and Mississippi State to this point has not proven to be able to really hit that next gear on the offensive side. I think on the road, at Tennessee here, Tennessee gets by Ole Miss. One of those games just kind of you have to grind out to win. I think that fact is they won it, come in with some confidence here. And yeah, for a Mississippi State team that started off as well as they did, I just think, they're kind of, as we said, they run into Alabama, who's number 1 in our power rankings. Now they run into Tennessee, who's number 2. And I think it's just not an ideal schedule to start off with here. And I think when you just kind of compare the two teams, I just think Tennessee has the edge here.
Yeah, I'm looking at what the computers are saying on the spread. And again, we don't have this as we're doing this Monday morning. But the computers say the spread on this, factoring the home team, will be about 12. It might be a lot to cover for two teams that scoring is not their forte. A 12-point game somewhere else might be more like 8, given the way these teams defend and the pace of play.
Maybe, but you say that, and I think Tennessee's good enough to just completely shut down Mississippi State on offense.
Well, yeah, the other thing is they could hold State in the 40s or something like that, too.
That's probably my only issue with that is
okay.
I haven't seen enough consistency with Mississippi State scoring the ball against average to good defensive teams, right? Now they're going to try to do it against the best defensive team they played this season, and they're going to have to do it away from home. And I think that's my only issue, perhaps, with why I think I could see it getting to that point. I still think I think the likelihood of Mississippi State maybe scoring in the 40s is lower, but is Tennessee good enough defensively to do that? Yes. So I could see that, but I also wonder if this is a game that either team's able to just kind of run away with because of just how the style is going to be. With, the defensive play and such. So,
well, State has played one true road game. That was at a bad Minnesota team. That was now 3 weeks ago, and won that one by 18 points. I don't know what that tells us here. Again, lost a neutral game to Drake. This team just doesn't have – I mean, it's got Toulouse-Smith, who's a really good player. This team defends very well across the board. But it's just that where are you going to get your buckets from? They don't shoot twos well. They don't shoot threes well. And they're a horrible foul shooting team. Whereas, as you mentioned, and sorry I'm getting repetitive here, but Tennessee, despite its moments offensively where it seems like it takes an act of Congress for the Vols to score in these 5 or 6 minute stretches at times, does do some things well offensively at times. So there's that.
Yep. I'll take the Vols.
Okay. You take the Vols even if it's around 12.
We've said everything we can possibly say. I think with this game, it's pretty simple with how it's going to play out. I feel like, and even if it's a 12, I mean, I'm not a better here. I think probably it's more in that 10 to 12 range. So sure.
Okay, here to me is the most interesting game of the night. LSU coming off a big win over Arkansas in Baton Rouge is 12-1, and it's visiting Kentucky. We have had our comments on Kentucky. Kentucky's not beaten much of anybody any good this year. You got a matchup of bigs and KJ Williams and Oscar Shibwe. You got the X factor of Adam Miller. Is this the game that Kentucky gets it right, Blake? I think this is a tough one. The spread on this one about 10.5, according to what the computers are going to have. We'll see what the actual total is, but I don't know that I trust Kentucky to cover that many points right now against a quality team, which I think LSU is.
I don't think you can trust Kentucky from an offensive standpoint, but here's why I'm in on Kentucky on this one, because I think there's two factors at play here. The first is that this is LSU's first true road game of the season in January.
Wow, it is.
So I know they played some neutral court games and they won 3 of those 4, but first true road game of the season. It's at Rupp, which I know Kentucky fans are frustrated, but it's still Rupp, and the atmosphere will be great. Kentucky at home has been pretty fantastic at times. It's against lesser competition. I get it, but they're still at home. LSU's still on the road for their first true road game of the season, and I just tend to think Kentucky. I tend to think this is a good spot for Kentucky. Now I say that I feel like I've picked LSU to win at Kentucky probably the past 2 or 3 seasons, and it's been one of those matchup type things where, for some reason I just feel like LSU's always matched up well with Kentucky. But different era now for the Tigers and different team. KJ Williams and Oscar Shibwe is a very fun, matchup to think about.
That's 2 top 5 guys in the player that you're running right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I don't want to say anybody else because I'm going to leave somebody out and somebody's going to pick that apart. But yeah, those guys. Obviously, Brandon Miller, I think leads the way, and Shibwe is probably 2 or 1A, 1B, however you want to put it. I don't want to mention anybody else because I'll leave somebody out of the discussion. But yes, like those are 2 top guys, and so I think when you kind of combine those guys together, that's a lot of fun to think about, kind of what this could look like. But yeah, I think that's why I would lean towards Kentucky, is just given Kentucky hasn't been perfect at home, but they play better at home, even if it's against a lesser competition. It's a fact. They play better there. Because the 4 games they've lost have all been away from Rupp. And so I think that's probably why I would look at Kentucky here and feel pretty good about them in this spot. But again, I don't want to, as we said, LSU is just a team that if it's a close game,
just keeps winning.
Yeah, I mean, they said they've lost 1 game by 2 points, and that one right now, I think that's something to remember. Some people are going to look at that and say, "Well, yeah, it's Kansas State," but if you watch Kansas State, which I've watched them a little bit this season, I mean, they're 12-1, and Jerome Tang is like, he's someone that's just doing a fantastic job with his team right now, and so I think that's something to keep in mind. So, yeah, I'd be surprised Kentucky wins this one, just going away. I mean, and that's like blowout fashion. But I tend to think this is one of those spots that just everything aligns for Kentucky to get a nice win here. That's much needed, based on where things have been at. But like I said, I think it's harder to predict just based on the fact that we have not seen LSU play a true road game this season, and that's kind of a weird thing when have flipped the calendar and they still haven't played a true game away from home. So.
Yeah, Kentucky too. Doesn't Kentucky have to shoot the ball better from outside at some point, just by dumb luck, if nothing else?
I mean, they're 12th in the country in 3-point percentage.
Oh, they are. I'm looking at the wrong stat. Never mind.
Well, I mean, now look. Here's the thing, right? But they're not. They're shooting 39% from 3.
Yeah,
but the thing
they're not shooting. They're not shooting enough of them. Maybe is the thing.
Well, and that's a good thing, I think, at times. But like the thing about that is, I think it's who they're doing it against, right?
Yeah,
I think that's
it does seem like in the big games they have not done it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think it's
like I'm like UCLA 6-12. I think that's where that came from. It's like the numbers are better on paper, than when I've watched him. And I think it's when they play the games that matter, it's just not been there.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're 6 of 25 against the Zags, like you said,
8
whatever
of
they were
23
against.
against Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State, they were 7 of 25. So that's the thing. Against the good teams, they've not shot the ball well from outside. It's one thing to shoot it well, against whoever, Florida A&M. I think they hit, 14, 13, something like that in that game. Um, yes, so I think I understand actually what you're saying, and people will point and say, well, look at the numbers. Yeah, great. But if you actually flip it and take the bad teams and the good teams, there's a significant difference. And I think that's why you can't trust Kentucky offensively, is because it's those differences between the teams that are good and the teams that are not that good. There can be a drastic difference in terms of how they play. And so LSU is a good team. And so maybe, that comes into play here. And I don't think it's going to be easy by any means. I just said from the setup itself, I actually think I would have a little more confidence in Kentucky right now because they have played well at home. And I just don't. We haven't seen LSU in this setting just yet, in terms of just this one-off road game in Rupp. So I think that's probably where I would lean towards the Cats here. But again, it won't be easy, and they've got to play good offense, and that's always a question mark for me. So
okay, here's one more thing on the game for what it's worth, and maybe not a lot because his minutes have been going down since the Gonzaga game. But C.J. Frederick did indeed dislocate a finger, and it's going to be out a few weeks. Played 4 minutes against Missouri. So he won't play, didn't play against Louisville, won't play in this one. One of their better outside shooters. But again, he played 6 minutes against UCLA, 9 against Yale, 15 against Michigan. Against better teams, he was seeing the floor less than half the time. So just a point of information. I don't know how much it matters in this one, but he will not be available. So
yep, I'll take the Cats here. I think they're probably the choice for me in this one.
okay, moving on to our last game, Ole Miss and Alabama. And before we do that, a quick word from our partners at Stakes. If you don't like betting $11 to win 10, you need to go to BROTHROW. I think I said Stakes. BROTHROW is what I meant. It lets you bet on all 50 states. You go to both, yes. BROTHROW lets you bet on all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a fair chance at winning. It's the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No deposit minimums, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. It's a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. When you get there, ask to join our private group at Southeastern 14. We'll get to that. We'll let you in, but we love these guys as partners as we do Stakes. And so if you want to put a little something on the game, that's the place to do it because you're not paying anybody other than the guy you lose to if you lose. And if you win, you get to keep more of your money. So what's not to like there? Okay, Ole Miss and Alabama. Ole Miss played Tennessee tough well into the second half last week. Alabama, we have noted the Crimson Tide's schedule and its ability to beat good teams. We have also noted Alabama's had some health issues. Dominic Welch is now back for them. We'll see what a role he plays for them. But Alabama took care of business against a team that does a lot of what Ole Miss does. And in other words, they really will try to take you out of your game defensively, except State's probably better at it than Ole Miss. Alabama handled that pretty well in its first conference game, and now it's facing the Rebels on Saturday. On Tuesday in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you could have confidence in Ole Miss being able to keep up with Alabama offensively. I don't, and I just think that's the issue here. Now, with Kermit Davis, I think he's pretty good defensively at figuring out the right approach to against teams like this, and I think he's kind of proven that over the years. Hasn't always been perfect, hasn't always worked out perfectly, but I think he is pretty good at that. And so I think that is something to kind of keep in mind maybe in this one. But again, I think just from a where the two teams are at standpoint, yeah, I I don't know. Like I want to say like I'm trying to, it all runs together with me sometimes, but like Ole Miss has struggled against Alabama since Nate Oates has been there. I want to say Alabama. We talk about Kermit's ability defensively to kind of mix and match some things and kind of throw teams off a little bit at times, but I don't think Alabama's a team they've had a lot of success against. And I'm trying to think of some of the ones in my mind. I know there was a game a couple years ago, wasn't it? That was like, I don't know, 1-0. Alabama scored 100. I remember that one. So I think that's my thing here is Alabama's kind of had Ole Miss's number, and I just think this is another one, especially since Nate Oates has been there, and I think this is kind of another one that just don't have a great feel for Ole Miss being able to put up enough points here, and I don't have a great feel for them being able to slow down Alabama to the point that they'll need to win a grinded out type game, right? And I think that's, in all honesty, I think those are the games Ole Miss has to like. They have to win with a grinded out style and like an ugly type game. I just think because they're not there offensively. Like I said, there's a lot of good defensive teams in the SEC, not a lot of great offensive teams. Ole Miss is one of those that are just not a great offensive team, but Alabama is one of those teams that is great, like a Missouri and so forth. So that's the problem I think Ole Miss runs into here, and um, unless unless Alabama just turns the ball over because they can do that, and we keep saying
which
that,
they can
right?
do.
Which they can do. So I think that's the path to success for Ole Miss, figuring out a way to force some of those turnovers, um, forced, unforced, either way, you'll take them. And I think that's, to me, that's probably the only path for Ole Miss to win this one is to really grind this thing to a halt. But that's easier said than done against Alabama. So
Okay, I'm looking you up on this. And Ole Miss was not defensively what it's usually been under Kermit Davis last year. Alabama put 97 on Ole Miss last year, won that 97-83. The year before, Ole Miss, which was 25 in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, Alabama goes in and wins that one. Let's see, I think they got 83 in that one, 82-64. And I don't think those teams played again. Apparently, they did not. So far, your memory has been up to snuff on this. And then
what
the
about
year
the year
before,
before? I want to say the year before is the one that
the year
they
before it was 103-78. So
there
yeah,
it
good
is.
memory. Alabama is just whatever Kermit Davis has tried to do to Bama defensively just has not been working.
Yeah, since Nate Oates has been there, I think that's been a theme. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe it's worked against other teams, right? But hasn't worked against Alabama, and I think that trend probably continues given what we've seen from the Tide this season.
Well, and again, Alabama is getting a little healthier. Brandon Miller's just an impossible cover. And Alabama has just, as we've said again and again, Alabama has played really well, but it can play better. I think of all the 4 games, and the spread on this one, according to computers, we don't have it on Monday morning, should be around 12.5. That might, I don't know that I feel great about any of these, but that might be the one, Alabama to cover that might be the one I feel the best about. Is that fair?
Probably so. And here's another
Or
little quick
Tennessee,
note.
maybe.
I would go with Alabama. I think
Okay.
Mississippi State can ugly that one
Based on
up
history. Yeah.
defensively. Yeah. This will only be Alabama's 7th home game this season. And when you consider what we talked about with other SEC teams who have not played a road game or only played one, like that's what I keep going back to. Like that's pretty great. The fact that this is only going to be their 7th home game this season. I mean, they played 13
Ole Miss has
games.
played away once.
I mean,
they played 3 neutral games, but one true road game. That was to Memphis and lost that one 68-57.
Give me more Alabama schedules because
yes,
the fact
what
that,
were
like I
we
said,
doing this year, Blake? I mean, remember the whole big thing where Sankey challenged the league to schedule better?
Well, hold on. What A&M talk about? We talked about A&M last year. Then what'd they do? What'd they do with their schedule this year?
The same thing.
It's the same thing. Like, there's no difference. So, I mean, maybe it's a little bit better, right? But, like, it's not significantly better than it was last year. That's the thing, man. It's like, I don't know. Like I said, and I'm not knocking any other team in the league because if we look around, there are a good group of teams that have played solid, schedules. But Alabama is on a
Auburn's
different
played
level.
one, Bama's played one, Tennessee's played one, Kentucky's played one.
Yeah, but I mean, Alabama's
Other
on a
than
different
that, I
level,
don't know that
right?
anybody's really just gone at it. Arkansas.
That's what I mean. A team that's willing to not just play every game at home. Like, and I know. Listen, it matters with your team too. If I was Matt McMahon and LSU, I'd do the same thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you got a completely new team. You're a new coach. I want to get some wins. But like they didn't do that necessarily either because 4 of their games were on the neutral court, I want to say. But that's using them as an example, right? Like if you're a team like that, I get why you don't play a lot of road games in the neutral court. But like if you're in Alabama, maybe this is the better point to make. I'm not knocking teams that do this because I think some teams you need to find chemistry, you need to find some confidence, and if that means playing an easier schedule and winning those games, great. But if you're a
Yeah.
team like Alabama that you know is built to go to a Final Four, play this type of schedule, and that I think is the better thing. Is like if you can be a team to this level, like I like. Here's the thing: like I like the fact that they played what they played because that to me is going to give them a much better chance when they get closer to that point. They've been in these games before, and I just think that's the fun thing to think about is they've really challenged themselves, and I think it really starts to pay off as they go through this SEC schedule.
Any parting thoughts before we end this one today?
No, we'll have thoughts on we'll have our reaction to Tuesday's games. We'll have some bowl stuff. We'll obviously look ahead to Wednesday's games, which not the best slate in the world, but it's interesting for a couple of reasons. So yeah, hit that subscribe button, and we'll have a lot more on the way.
And we're going to do most of these, I think, is single videos. We're going to try to. It's just we're still in the middle of holiday stuff, and getting
Yeah,
past that.
it's hard to do them singles sometimes, but we will try to do this for the bigger games moving forward. Maybe not every game, but we'll do our best. But you know where to find the SEC basketball coverage right here, Southeastern 14.
Yeah, and people were asking. We weren't around as much for about a week. We had travel. We had holiday stuff to do. We have the same stuff that all you guys out there are dealing with. But you're going to see a ton of us just about every day between here and the end of
Apologies.
the basket. Yes, apologies. You're going to see. We're going to have something just about every day, and then goodness, when we get into February and baseball and basketball run together, you're going to be sick of us. And
Well,
anyway,
there's football. Football's year round, so we'll have
there's
some
also
for you
football
folks.
still. That's right. There's a
Please
couple
don't think we're
games
going to forget
today.
about football. We will have something with
No.
football, probably a lot. So yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thanks to our sponsors, BROTHROW and Steaks. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We'll see you soon.